right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this EBAN webinar. I'm very delighted to see many of you with us today. We'll be talking about an extremely important topic, which is really very important for the growth of many startup companies you may have in your portfolios, and that is scaling and entering new markets and expanding in those new regions. Before we start, just a couple of words about us. We're the European Business Angels Network, the trade association and community gathering business angel groups scattered across Europe. This is a membership-based organization started roughly 20 or so years ago that aims at driving successful and responsible angel investing in Europe. And so we do this in a number of ways, and for example, today we have sessions on best practice sharing. So this is to share knowledge and insights from more experienced investors in the community about angel investment activity. And so today we're very delighted to have our members, Petri Rinne, with us, and Rinne and Partners hosting this session this afternoon for our community on the topic of entering new markets. Before we introduce the webinar, just a couple of reminders that this session, like all sessions, is being recorded so that we can share it with our EBAN members later, and they can watch it again at their own separate time. During the session, we'll definitely be taking questions, and we warmly invite you to ask us any questions through the Zoom Q&A function. You should see that on your monitor, on your screen. We'll be probably taking a long break at the end of this webinar, which is expected to last roughly an hour. So please do drop us a line there, and we'll get to your questions later. Now I'm very happy to introduce Petri. He's our guest speaker for today. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a serial business angel investor and also an advisor to many tech companies. He's affiliated also to our EBAN member group in Finland called FIBAN, the Finnish Business Angel Network, besides also having his activity at Rinne and Partners, helping startups to grow and expand into new regions and new markets. And so today, Petri will be sharing with us a lot of his best practices and the challenges startups face when entering new markets. So Petri, I'm delighted to have you with us. Thanks for making time and joining us today. I'd like to hand over now the floor to you so we can start your presentation. So I'll stop sharing my screen and you can get your slides up.
Hey, thanks, Jacopo, and thanks for having me today. I'm extremely enthusiastic about this opportunity to share my experience on opening new markets. So really delighted to do that. So yeah, I've been doing that for some time already. So I believe it's more than 30 years that I have been taking some kind of services or products abroad, so from another country to another country, and sales is something that I'm really enthusiastic about, and I'm doing it every day still. So I like to do it. So this is definitely something which is near my heart. The past 15 years. We have been helping companies to conquer new markets, and we have performed and helped several companies, facilitated several projects in the EU, in the US, and yeah. So today I'm going to share my experience. Of course, this is not very exhaustive, so I'm not going into very deep details because we just simply don't have time. But very happy to answer all questions that you have in the Q&A session, and also after that. So just pop me a message, for example, over LinkedIn or email or so forth. So yeah, happy to be here. So I will share my presentation now. I have I think I have like 8 or 9 slides, so not exhausting you with the PowerPoint exercise. All right, I hope you see the screen. If not, just, yeah, okay, great. Okay, so today's topic is to discuss how to grow your business abroad and bring you insight on entering new markets, I mean geographic markets here. I would like to start with the COVID because this has had a really big impact to us all. But it's not entirely negative when we are considering business and international sales. This is a quote from McKinsey and Company from their report that they did on B2B sales. What is happening actually in a year's time frame. So the quote says, "Omnichannel is here to stay for B2B sales." Omnichannel means here that companies need to adapt, so they need to find the route to the buyer, and whichever media it is, whether it's an account executive, whether it's an inside salesperson, whether it's online, you just need to find the right channel to be able to perform sales and increase your revenue. And also, of course, because I have been dealing with lots of technology companies myself, I'm involved in several myself. So it has been nice to see really great success stories as well during this past 12 months time. Just last week I spoke with a SaaS technology company here in Finland, and they said, or the CEO said, he was really glad, he was enthusiastic. He said that they were able to increase their annual rate of revenue in 2 months' time to double for this year compared to last year. Those are like incredible numbers. So there are some success cases around. And also the impact of COVID has been that because you cannot travel, you cannot, in many countries you cannot, well, most of the countries you cannot even go to meet customers in person. That means that decision makers are actually more available. So they do have, of course, lots of remote meetings and so forth. But what I have experienced that they do have more time to actually take your call, and they are also more ready to do that. And this is an opportunity for companies that want to reach international markets because traditionally it has been a bit challenging to actually open the door and get the first foot in and start the conversation. When you have been able to do that, then it's easier. But if you're not able to even open the first door, then it's kind of difficult to move the sales process. So decision makers are more like ready to engage in new things as well. So this is very positive. Well, needless to say, if we are looking at the McKinsey quote above, companies need to adapt. What has happened during this past 12 months is something that will at some form continue as well. Nobody knows how it will form, whether remote is taking big part of the picture, or should we still continue to meet up with the customers face to face or partners. It remains to be seen, but somehow it will move. And the key here is that you need to be able to move and amend your strategy also to match the move in the market. This last quote here in this slide is that local is still the king or queen. That means that even though remote is rising, still, if you have an international sales team and you have people that understand the local culture, do have the right connections there, it is always better. wasn't the last bullet actually. The last bullet here is stop acting like a deer in the headlights. Actually, myself, I was also a deer in the headlight a year ago in March when we kind of thought that what was happening in China, and then it went to Italy, and then it just blew off. We thought here in Finland that hey, this will never happen here. So we are remote. We are like an island in a very far north. So this will not impact us. So yeah, I was a deer in the headlight. Many companies were a deer in the headlights. So they were like thinking what's now, and concentrating on saving what needs to be saved, and forgot about doing business and looking in the future. But that's changed actually quite rapidly. So in a couple of months, 1 or 2 months, the companies that understood that now it's not the time, to put your head somewhere, that now it's time to actually invest in the future and do things a little bit differently. So in this slide, we're talking about international readiness, and it contains a few topics here. In my experience, if your service or solution or product is not like from the outset a really global play, and you are residing in a home market that you don't have a home market in your own country, then it's a different ball game. But usually when you are entering new markets, that means that you are addressing new customers which are not in your home turf. That means that they will ask most likely that, okay, so you want to sell this product to me or this service to us? That sounds great. So what's your traction in the home market? With what kind of companies you have been working before? Do you have any customer cases? Do you have references that we could call? So, and if your answer is no, we don't, then it's not necessarily a showstopper, but definitely will slow things down a lot. So you have traction, then next thing you need to also do is to validate the market, your target market. So where do we want to aim? And you also need to consider this in kind of a time frame perspective. So you could say that, okay, our plan is to grow first in Europe, and then into the US, then Asia Pac, Far East, so forth. But you need to put that in the timeline, and you have to have a path. So okay, we want to be in the US in 3 years, for example. But hey, let's start with the Nordic countries, or let's start with France, or let's start with the UK or Holland, and take it from there. Get the traction going, get some revenue in, get customers signed, customer cases, maybe more funding. It's much easier than to attract a bigger market. In some cases, it is the wisest decision to go directly to a larger market, but usually the best approach is that you should start a little bit nearer. But the market research is important because you need to validate the market. You need to understand what kind of ecosystems is in your vertical. So if your product somehow resolves some kind of challenges for your target customers, you need to understand what kind of ecosystems are around your customers. And I'm talking about partners, competitors, legislators, authorities. When you know your ecosystem, it's much easier to make the decision that let's pursue this market. The team is key. Means here that doing business abroad is definitely usually much more difficult than doing in the home market. In your home country, it's easier to sell and waving your hands, and everybody knows each other. Of course, if you're residing in a big market, not everyone knows each other, but still you come in from the same culture, and it's definitely easier. So you cannot do it so that you just hire an unexperienced person to do your internationalization. It doesn't happen that way. So the whole organization and the whole team needs to be aligned, and the best people needs to be appointed to run the internationalization. Planning. I've been talking a lot about planning over the past years because I have seen some really nasty stories about companies going abroad very opportunistically. Hey, I know someone there. He can help us in, for example, in the French market. Hey, we have a customer in our home market who's also operating in 5 to 10 different countries. Hey, let's do that. And that's not, by the way, not a bad strategy. But if it's not only based on that kind of opportunistic approach, usually those fail. It's just you cannot navigate, for example, rougher seas without any proper GPS or before GPS time you needed a map actually. So just don't do it without the map. And funding. We are of course hosted by IBAN here. So this is a topic which is very important. Opening new markets actually takes time and it also consumes money. So either you need to have a solid revenue, you need to have a cash in the bank, or you need to have an investor that is willing to back this exercise. So for example, with a 50K or 100K grant from the government will not open a new market for you. It just don't do it. You can maybe do like in the second bullet, like initial market research, get some kind of idea whether this market is something that you could pursue. But funding needs to be in a different ballpark in order to back up a consistent execution of your go-to-market plan. We have a separate slide on funding. I will discuss this a little bit later, a little bit more depth. Like the robot here says, the key takeaway here is consider right timing. This means in this context that if you don't have traction in the home market, so you don't have customer cases, you haven't done any market research, your team is maybe not optimal for this execution phase, you haven't done any planning, you don't have enough money, just don't do it. I mean, go through this list before, and then it's a whole new setup. It increases so you need to have the right timing in place. Of course, having said that, I have bumped into several very promising technology companies in my home country that could have lots of potential in the international marketplace, but they haven't done anything on it. So that's the other side of the coin. Yes, my favorite topic, planning. If you don't plan, it basically means that you will face astronomical cost, and that means that you are making wrong decisions because you haven't planned well. So you are entering wrong markets. You haven't actually done any market research. So you are trying to open a new country with poor knowledge, poor data. Maybe the team is right, your funding is not in place. And that means that you are not getting any sales, but you are getting overhead, and that can be extremely costly. Seen some really nasty stories about companies going bust because they have been relying on opening new markets and the revenue from the new market, and they have put basically all their existing money in the pot and failed. And also years of wasted time. This is also frustrating. You just to, going international is always like a learning phase. It is, even though you plan very well, it is a learning phase. You face up new competitors, you face up new questions from your new potential customers in your target market. But if you plan well, the steepness of the learning curve is not that steep actually. So it is easier. So wasted time is a bad thing. And of course, the last but not the least, poor results or no results at all. These of course are overlapping, these three, but this is very familiar. If you don't have any plan to execute, you do it opportunistically. Usually that ends in results being really, really bad, and or not even a single deal. And that is really nasty to see a small company trying to open a new market, investing a lot of time and money into it, doing it for 12, 16, or 18 months and getting 0 sales. And that's not good. So what is planning? So first of all, of course, you need to set your strategy and goals. So where do we want to be in, for example, 3 to 5 years? It can be quicker or it can be slower, but you need to vision. Where do we aim at? The big picture, and the high level strategy to go there. That's definitely, you need to have that in place. When you have the big picture in place, all your activities actually are targeted to achieve those goals. You need to consider target markets, and that means, like I mentioned earlier on, it means that these needs to be also in the timeline. So target for this year could be to open this country, next year maybe 2 or 3 more countries, maybe third year a new continent. So you need to address that as well. So what is the service or product that we are trying to sell in the new market? Talking about spearhead here, that means that if you're a company that can offer like let's say from 3 to 5 different types of services or products, or they are kind of tailored to, for example, different verticals, you need to consider very well that whether you will go full Monty or would you like to pick one spearhead service and try to address, for example, one vertical with one solution and expand from there, because it's a bit trickier if you want to go full Monty right from the outset. And yes, channel, direct, or both. I did mention the ecosystem play earlier on, and I will mention that again in the later slides. So you need to understand what is your target audience, who benefit from products and services that you offer. And you need to understand what is the ecosystems around those customers. And then you need to make the decision that we will sell through channel. So it can be like ISPs, MSPs, value-added resellers, consultants, integrators. It can mean lots of things. It can be, for example, consultants. You need to understand what is the ecosystem around that and what is the best route to find your end customers. And if you opt either channel or direct, if you plan to do the both. So for example, if you have a channel strategy, I will, by the way, discuss channels a little bit later on. You need to also make the decision whether you're pursuing both, because that can be tricky. So if you are building a channel strategy and selling directly, your potential channel partners don't necessarily find it very nice that you're going direct as well. But that's I will explain that a little bit later on. Sales model, team, and leadership. Sales model here means that, well, it a little bit means also that whether it's a channel or direct that affects the sales model. But also it means that what is the media that we are using? What are the, you know, the sales team members? What are the profiles of sales team members? So our selling online, do we need account execs, feet on the ground, meeting up with customers or partners? Do we use lead generation? Do we use inside sales? Are we trying to do it remote? So what is the sales model to attract our target audience? And of course, how you run the sales team, that's also very important. So you need to have a proper sales management practice in place. Otherwise, it's just not scalable. And marketing, messaging, materials, and tools, those are important as well, especially when you are A, entering a new market, and B, if you're hiring new people to the sales team. If your marketing, messaging, materials, and other stuff is not well thought of, it becomes difficult. It is really difficult to achieve results, because you need to back up your sales with the proper marketing. And for example, lead generation is becoming more and more important in the sales process. Number crunching, you need to have the budget. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I spoke with the CEO of a Swedish SaaS company, and we were going through, you know, what's the phase of their planning, and it sounded quite okay. But when I asked that, okay, so you have a sales budget and also a cost budget so you do have numbers in the Excel that you can clearly see that, you know, what is the overhead on exercising this internationalization, and what are you aiming to reach? And they didn't do that. They thought that they just you know, go along and see what happens. So really, really difficult. Of course, it's difficult to estimate those numbers, but you need to do that exercise, even though the numbers change as you go. And the funding strategy, and here the funding strategy, and I do have another slide on especially funding, but here it means that if you are entering a market and you have done that for 12 months, and yeah, you get the first pilots in and the funnel is building up, but then you check the account balance and it says around zero, then it's really too late to start thinking about where to raise money, because as we all know here, it does take time to raise more money. So you need to plan your funding strategy in good time, so that if these things happen and you end up in this kind of situation, you are ready to tackle that as well. An execution timeline means here that you know all these different activities needs to be placed in a good timeline, so everybody understands what we are aiming at and what are the milestones and so forth. Okay, how we're doing time-wise? We're doing okay. Then if we talk about the sales team here, when you build up your international sales team, you need to start with targets. You hopefully have done that when in the planning phase, so when you're doing that go-to-market planning. So you have the targets. Then channel or direct, that in this context, that means if you're building a sales team and you have decided to build a channel, then how should I say, the content or the people profiles could be different if you are pursuing direct customers. So you need to consider that. You also need to consider that, you know, what do we need? So do we need a person feet on the ground, or can we do it remotely? If we do it remotely, should we still hire a local person to do that? There's a lot of moving parts on building up your sales team. Yeah, that's what I just covered. Hybrids means actually here kind of going still back to the McKinsey quote. It means that you need to have a sales team that can produce results, and you need to think out of the box as well. So it's not like this traditional, let's hire a salesperson and here we go. You need to have a proper sales team, like a lubricated engine, diesel engine that just you know, keeps running. Oh, diesel is not that popular anymore. I mean, hybrids are more popular, but still, you know, builds up the funnel and produces agreements and produces revenue from your target market. Think local, global means here that you have to have the big picture, so where you're aiming at, and it could be really big picture. You know, you would like to be a unicorn, for example. That's a big picture, but you have to have the path to go there, and that means that most likely you would need to have local people in your sales team. For example, you have decided in your go-to-market planning that let's try to address the German-speaking market first. Then maybe your decision is that, hey, let's hire one person who is feet on the ground, account executive, and an inside salesperson, and then you have a pre-sales support to back this sales activity. So, but this depends on your target markets and what you are selling and what you're aiming at. So this hire or contract means here that if you do need new persons in your sales team, you have the option to hire them, or you have the option to contract with the sales contractor. Now, the sales contractor I have been using in our internationalization projects, they are persons that have experienced fresh contacts in our target vertical, and they are, you know, they are experienced sales hunters. So they do the project part-time, but they are still an integral part of your sales team with your emails, and you know, they report into your CRM. So they are members of your sales team, but the risk is lower, definitely, if you compare to hiring your own person in the outset. Some companies do it so that they first start with the contractor situation, build up the market, and when the revenue starts to pick up and you know the funnel is in a certain stage, they, you know, it's much easier to do the decision to, you know, for example, put up your own office or hire your own salespeople. Open up to international business. What does it mean here? It means that the whole company needs to open up to do an international business. So this is very important. It's part actually also on your internal communication. Everybody needs to be aligned on you know, achieving the same goals, and everybody needs to think international. I mean, every employee. This is very important. See some bad experience, or I have some bad experience on few occasions where the sales team has been very international and thinking about achieving the goals, but then the next level, I mean, talking about pre-sales support, technical support, customer services, and the R&D, you know, weren't. So there was really a bad communication there, and usually those don't end up well. So you need to consider communication and motivation really key things. No, now outsourcing please means that you cannot outsource sales. I mean, it's your core functionality. It's you need to keep the strings in your own hands. You need to be the conductor. You need to manage the sales team, even though you use, like, for example, sales contractor or outside third parties. You have to be on the driver's seat. So no question about it. And what does a robot say? The key takeaway is that you need to build the team that actually can achieve your goals. So there's lots of moving parts there, but you know, the team needs to be built so that it is realistic to achieve your goals. So building a channel, going back to the ecosystem, I do like the word ecosystem. It's nice here as well, but it is very important, because if you're addressing a target market and you have decided in your go-to-market planning to build a channel, that's your go-to-market, build a channel, you need to understand, you know, what kind of players are there that provide services to your target end customers. And from there, you need to consider, or you need to actually draw who is your optimal partner to do a successful business in the target market. It's very important. And do your homework means that you cannot. This is one of the common mistakes of building a channel, is that you try to do it volume-based, sign as many channel partner agreements as possible and wait for the money to start to come in. Well, surprise, surprise, it won't. You know, building a proper channel and make it successful so that you can jointly address end customers and they buy and you get revenue is double work, actually. And you just need to understand it. However, if you're able to pull that through and you can build a really successful channel that is motivated and produces results, it's a scalable business model. But do your homework means here that you need to plan it carefully. And of course, it starts with the right partner with us. So what's the value proposal? The channel, you have a value proposal to your end customers. You are resolving their challenges. So what is the value proposal to the partner? Why should they work with us? Is it to make more money together, or what it is? You need to think about it. Partnering means that you need to first, and this is part of your go-to-market planning again, you need to define your strategy on working with partners. So, you know, what kind of partners, in which countries, how do we engage with them? You need to also think about the process on working with the partners, and also the engagement. And that means that when you have thought about the first bullet, the ecosystem, and you understand, okay, these are our potential partners that we are going after, you need to define, you know, what is the process of working with these types of partners, and how do you qualify, for example. So when we meet up with 10 potential partners there, how do we qualify that it's reasonably good decision to even start to do business with those? So what are those criteria? In some cases, it's pointless to even start if there's no common motivation and the commitment is the key here. Precise means here that you cannot. When you're engaging with the new potential partners, it is sales. You need to sell your company, yourself, your value proposal to the partner, and you also need to explain. So, okay, what is the value proposal? Why partner with us? So you need to be very precise on that. So it cannot be very high level that, hey, we are doing this and we thought that it would be nice to talk and maybe see what we can do together. Usually that doesn't work. Usually you don't even get the first door open. So you need to be precise. You need to do your homework. You need to think about the value proposal and jump into the trousers of the other person in the partners business. I usually highlight this very importantly, this joint business planning. If the partner is not willing to do joint business planning with you, I mean really joint business planning, I mean you need to set targets, you need to discuss prospects, you need to follow up, engage, train salespeople and so forth. You need to consider whether it's worth it. I mean, you can consume a lot of time on partnering, and if that doesn't lead anywhere, it's it's frustration. But yeah, sometimes it's better to walk away. And of course, there's different types of partnership here. There's also some, marketplaces where you are part of other apps and so forth. So it doesn't. This is more or less like other types of like sell through and sell with partnerships. And then you need to document the partner program. That's of course very important, and that tackles how do we work together, how do we do joint business planning, who are the persons responsible on technology, sales, how do we support the partners. So it's kind of a guidebook when you engage with potential partners and they ask, okay, so how do we work together? You can throw this as a PDF to say this is how, or it can be in your website as well. So the key takeaway here from a robot perspective is that you need to sharpen the axe, be patient. Sharpen the axe means that you need to plan, you need to create processes, you need to document, and be patient because it's a double work. You need to first sell and build a channel, and then you need to get the channel to sell to the end customers, and then you get revenue. So funding, I go quickly because we are a little bit running out of time here. I just get excited. So we already discussed this time to raise funding. So you need to do it on time, start early, do it in the go-to-market phase. Understand that if you are opening this market, it consumes this much of money, and then when you are going to the second phase, you need more money. Where do we get the money? Yeah. Prepare for bottlenecks is that it can be a very positive problem. You are getting traction in your target market. The funnel is rising or expanding. You're getting pilots in and so forth, but you need more money to be able to execute. Be careful with whom you marry. So this means that you need to also consider with what kind of investors do you want to work with in the future. Very important. A key takeaway: funding rounds do take time. So this is our last slide. So we have maybe 1 minute left here. So yeah, so internationalization is definitely not easy. So I'm optimistic myself. I don't want to paint a too pessimistic picture anywhere, but you need to do stuff. You need to be careful, and you need to plan well, and then you need to execute relentlessly, and you need to be consistent and patient. But it's definitely doable. Consider changing trends, and that goes back to the first slide on COVID. Things have changed, and you need to adapt. So you need to plan a little bit differently and think out of the box. You need to have a goal. If you don't have a goal, where are you aiming at? It becomes difficult to motivate people. It becomes difficult to set targets, milestones, anything. You definitely need to have something to aim at. Plan, prepare, execute, and follow up. No cutting corners, please. Do it properly. and be patient and consistent. And the final takeaway from our robot says that go for it. It's actually fun. It is actually fun. I've been doing that for some time already, and it's really rewarding. It is not the easiest task, but when you actually start to see the funnel building up, you get the first deals, the revenue starts to coming. It's really rewarding. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much for listening, and now we have the time for some Q&A.
Petteri, thanks so much. Jacopo here. Thanks so much for the excellent presentation. We did get a lot of questions. I'm going to be starting off with the ones that came in on the Q&A section, but I also saw the ones that came in on the chat. So fingers crossed and we get through all of them. So we're going to start off with the first question. Yes, obviously reminding everyone that startups typically have limited budgets to work with. So as an early stage startup with normally a 2-3 person team and low cash, and you're wanting to launch in a new market with a small budget, how would you go about it?
Okay, yeah, it is tricky if you want to open a new market if you're really small with a really low budget. So one of my slides was international readiness, and maybe you first thing what pops into my mind, of course I don't know any details, is that is the timing right now, or should you a little bit try to strengthen your company, build it a little bit in your home market first, and then pursue the international marketplace. The other solution is that if you see that you need to go abroad right at the outset, you just need to put in more funding. You need to get the investors in place. Otherwise, it becomes tricky. If you do it with a little bit too little money, it's a frustration everywhere.
Yeah. So then we have this is a very specific question. I think it's related to the virtual reality VR company. So I don't know if you want to maybe share some insights on like very specific sectors, if there's any change in the strategy of entering new markets. So the question is, which is the better strategy for a VR company with big data for international sales?
Okay. Yeah, a bit difficult to answer that question as I don't have that much information on what is the service or product.
That's fair enough, Peter. We go to the next one. So obviously thanking you for the interesting presentation. And so the question is, you mean that a startup wanting to enter a new market should produce references from business partners outside of the targeted country, or necessarily from some few already established inside the targeted country?
Yes, that's a good question. From the outset, from your home country, the customer cases work two different ways. The first one is that it's a reference point to your potential customers in the new market. So if they understand that you work, for example, with this kind of known company, that's a good reference. Second is that companies are looking for best practices. So if they understand that you work with this company and they do it like this, so this helps them to understand that is this of value to them. But when you open the new market, you always need to adapt that strategy, that you need to aim for the first win in the new market. That's what I've been doing for, very long time, and build on that. You have the first reference inside the country. That helps a lot. So even though you need to a little bit like, I don't know, reduce the price or give something for free or something, just to get the first one in.
Yeah. Then we have a follow-up question, and it's interesting because a couple of people asked about the culture, the role of the culture in making this market entry easier. So it's worded out in different ways, but I think it's the cultural factors, the language barriers, and so on.
Okay.
What do you have to say maybe about, what do you think in general about the cultural proximity in the market expansion strategy?
Yes, you need to consider that. It depends on your service or product that you're selling. It depends on your target market. And my answer a year ago would have been a little bit different. I would emphasize the need for local salespeople in your sales team. My answer now is that it always helps, because if you are addressing, for example, German-speaking market, if you have someone that is residing there, to understand the culture, speaks the languages, has the network there, it always helps. But the past 12 months, success story has been created a lot remotely as well.
All right, let's maybe move on to another question that's more related with the partners one could engage with to enter a new market. So there's different examples. There's one question, maybe you could talk about a bit the role that the chambers of commerce or embassies can have in making this market entry easier. And then maybe, after you speak a little bit about that, if there's any other kind of partners, for example, consultancies or specialists in this sector that should be leveraged. So let's maybe cover a little bit more on those two questions of the partners.
Okay. Yes, if you have a possibility to, of course, it depends on your target market, but if you have a possibility to work with the embassies and chambers of commerce, you definitely need to look at that option as well. In many cases, they can help a lot. They can to open doors. They can help with the localization issues. They have great networks inside the country. Also, local culture. So definitely should ask or research that option as well. However, usually you also do need the sales team to close deals. So those entities are mostly in the like the phase where you are like opening doors and validating the market. But if you are starting to getting leads or when you need to really perform sales, you need to have a person to actually hunt and close the deals.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And then maybe similar question. So what do you think in general about the joint venture model? I mean, the question asked, what do you suggest? When would you suggest doing the joint venture? When would you suggest licensing or franchising for the market entry?
Yeah, that's a big question. I don't know if I can answer that very well. It depends on the big picture you have. It depends on your products or service. It depends in which stage you are. And it always boils back to the ecosystem of the target country. So what is the ecosystem that you would like to address there? So what are your potential end customers, or what are the players that are affecting those end customers? And then you just need to understand that, okay, there's, for example, this player that can address a big chunk of the market share. So maybe it will be a good decision to put up a joint venture with them, or you can start with partnering first and then go into the joint venture later. So, but I cannot give a more precise answer on because I don't have much information on this.
Fair enough. The next question is something really interesting because it's also work we try to do with IBAN to allow startups to enter new markets, and that's the cross-border syndication. And Petri, you're an angel. Have you ever done deals with angels in other markets, also with the goal of allowing an easier market entry for that startup funded?
I haven't personally done but I think it's a great idea. Should be leveraged more. Yeah, definitely. I know that you're doing a great job there. Yeah, because if, for example, a company based in Finland and have investors, angel investors from, for example, FIBAN and Spain, then you immediately have already kind of the local touch there, and so it does help a lot.
Very good. Let's see if we have any more questions coming in. I'll answer the one because most of you asked also about the recording of the session and the slides. Yes, I think we'll be sharing that later. We do share this with IBAN members. So if you are a member of our community or affiliated to one of our members, you'll be getting this over email. And if you're not, maybe this could be a good opportunity for you to join our association. Let's see if we have any more questions. Petri, maybe you could get your email in the chat so people can also follow up with you maybe after the session if they have more specific questions to be asked.
Yes, more than happy to answer all questions. So
super. I hope I didn't miss anyone. We only have just a couple of minutes left, which is perfect just to thank the audience and thank Petri for joining us, and you see his email now popping up in the chat. So
thanks for having me.
Take note of that. And Petri, thanks again for making time to be with us and for sharing your experiences and knowledge with the rest of the group. So stay tuned, everyone. We look forward to welcoming you in the coming days for our next IBAN community webinars. We have one coming up next week on the 1st of April, highlighting women entrepreneurs in the health tech space. So join us then. And until then, please stay safe, stay well, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.